Hello, and welcome to iClone G2 Clone Cloth. Avatar Upper Lower Shoes, creating and cutting clone cloth. Clone cloth is an exciting new gateway into virtual fashion design, using the image editor such as Photoshop, Painter, PaintShop Pro, etc., along with iClone 2.0. You can be a fashion designer and a 3D animator all at the same time. The most important aspect of this new addition to iClone 2.0 is that there are two categories of the G2 or Generation 2 characters. The first, iClone G2 Clone Cloth, is a 2-mesh layered character with a complete skin mesh and a complete clone cloth garment mesh. Clone cloth is designed to work only with G2 avatars that possess the outer garment second layer mesh. The second type, iClone G2 single layer mesh, has the skin and garment merged into one single model, just like Generation 1 or G1 characters. Each of the two types of G2 character meshes can be modified by their textures to create a custom avatar. Clone Cloth is special because it provides a way to design fashions for clothing using the Clone Cloth garment templates and opacity maps, along with the diffuse template as a guide to cut the edges of the upper and lower body textures and the shoes textures as well. You can also use the UV references Reallusion has developed as template guides to make editing easier. After your first clone cloth cut, you're sure to see the difference right away. In this tutorial, you will learn to create a short-sleeved sweatshirt and shorts with leather 3-strap sandals. These editing methods are achieved in 22 easy-to-follow steps. So let's go ahead and get started now. Step number 1. Open iClone 2.0. Go to Avatar, Character, Template, G2 Clone Cloth, locate and click on Jack Casual. Step number 2. Edit the avatar clothing creation in sections, such as his shirt, upper, then pants, lower, then shoes. You must launch the diffuse maps for each section individually to open the guides for editing in your image editor. Go to Upper Body, Modify, and then scroll down to find the map setting portion of the menu, and then locate Launch under Diffuse. Click the Launch button to launch the Upper Body Diffuse map in your image editor. Step number 3. Open an image to select and copy or simply paint a completely new texture. Using a digital photograph is the quickest and easiest way to develop realistic clothing, and you have a wide variety to choose from inside your closet right now. So open an image in Photoshop. We have our front image here set up already. As you can see, I've selected each section of our body out in upper and lower. And this was done very easily using the Lasso Tool. And I just have a red stroke surrounding these layers so you can see exactly what the selections are. And we'll be using this one file for both the upper and lower portions of our iClone avatar. But for now we only need the top. So we'll go ahead and hide our pants and deselect and simply drag and drop that onto our upper texture diffuse map. Place the front of your upper body texture over the left side of the clone cloth template labeled front, and then shape, transform, and trim your image until you're happy with it. You get the idea, and we already have a file set up. So we'll go ahead and open that now. As you can see, we've taken our image and now we have fit it over the front section. As you can see, we already have our front image manipulated and transformed, and it is fit over our front section. You can see the image here from our digital photograph. Color-coded seams give you a precise explanation of where the front and back images will merge, creating a 360-degree custom texture map. Notice the bleed area as well, which is the small area on the outside of the colored seams. This is the area where you want your texture to overlap for a seamless fit. Step number 4, open a back image to select and copy or paint a completely new back texture to place over the back portion of the upper body texture. This is over the right side of the clone cloth template labeled back. So what we can do is open a back reference, which is basically the same photograph, only our model standing turned completely around. As you can see, the logo on the back of the hoodie is much different and much larger than the front. And again, we have selected the upper and lower portions individually, and you can see those selections here. And again, that was done very quickly with the Lasso Tool. And we only need the top, so we'll go ahead and select it, deselect our selection, and drag and drop that onto our template. Again, transform, trim, and shape. And you can do that very easily in Photoshop with the transform tool. Again, you get the idea, and we already have an image set up in this particular template. So we'll go ahead and make that active and visible. And now you can see our front and back template. The small logo on the front here, the large logo on the back, and placed inside our iClone upper diffuse template. The color-coded seams again give you a precise explanation of where your front and back images will merge to create the 360-degree custom texture map. Notice the bleed area and make sure that both sides, front and back, cover the bleed area as well. Then save your file and replace the iClone upper texture underscore diffuse JPEG. Go to File, Save, select JPEG in the Format option, and replace the iClone upper diffuse. Say yes to replace, and OK to the JPEG options. Step number 5. Return to iClone, scroll down, and locate the Update button at the bottom of the Modify menu. Click Update and notice that the diffuse map has now been applied to your character. Step number 6. Return to your image editor in your new diffuse file because you need to create an opacity map. This map will be an active second layer determining where your viewer will be able to either see through the garment completely using solid black, or using a grayscale to have a semi-transparent surface such as a nylon or mesh fabric, and using solid white where you wish the texture to be visible. Use the clone cloth template to select where you wish to cut or make your alterations to the existing design. For instance, we will be taking out portions of the neck and the sleeves off the front and the back. So let's go ahead and do that now. Make both layers 1 and 2 visible by clicking the eye icons, and then holding Shift and selecting both at once will make both layers active. Use hotkey Control plus E to merge the two layers, and then select the Lasso tool or use hotkey L for lasso. Go to your layer palette and take the opacity down to 50% so we can see our guidelines from our clone cloth. And as you can see, if you zoom in with the lasso selected, click and hold Alt, release click, and then click again and you'll see that you have a point and click selection tool now. And I'm quickly going to cut right along the lines of these guides and make a selection. As you can see, I'm isolating the bottom portions of the sleeves. This can also be done by using the magic wand tool with the background layer selected. As you can see, we now have a selection that is isolating the bottom portion of the sleeves using the lines on our background as a guide. We also want the front of our neck to be visible, so we're going to need to cut out a portion of that. So we'll zoom back in, and we will hold Alt, and as you can see now there's a minus sign beside our lasso. If we hold Shift as well and then let go of Alt, you will see a plus sign. Click and then hold Alt once again, and you'll be able to point and click with the lasso tool. And we're basically just going to cut kind of a V-neck style. And you'll notice I've intersected two different points of my UVs. And we'll close our selection. And now you can see we have all of this area isolating the sleeves and this small area here isolating the front portion of the neck. We'll leave the back alone to give the effect of a hoodie or cloth raised higher than the shoulders. Use Control C and Control V for copy paste with layer 2 active, and layer 3 will be just a trim of those areas selected. Move them back into place using your move tool. Zoom in to make sure that you have a good fit. And everything looks fine. We have our bleed covered. And these are the areas we want to be invisible. To be invisible in iClone, it must be solid black. Simply hold Control and click on the layer window in the layer palette to activate the selection of everything visible on that layer. Then make sure that solid black is your background color in Photoshop. Hold Control and select Backspace to fill the layer with the background color. To now easily create the white layer that we will need to be visible to make sure that our new short sleeve hoodie is completely visible in the area that we see here, we simply need to make sure that white is our background color, and then hold Control and select the layer window inside the layer palette. And then, once again, Control plus Backspace to fill with white. Control D to deselect, and then go to File, Save As, and name your file iClone Upper Jack Casual Short Sleeves _ opacity, and then make sure and save it as a JPEG and the format type. Also, to keep organized, you may want to put it in its own opacity folder for custom content. Saving files in this naming method will allow you to easily pack textures for sale or share so that new users will know what character and clone cloth type garment they are meant to be applied to. Select Save, and OK from the JPEG options. Step number 7. Again, return to iClone and locate the Import Opacity button represented by a folder icon under the Opacity section of the Map Settings portion of the menu. Click on the Import Opacity icon and navigate to your file. As you can see, this is our opacity map that we created in step 6 select Open to apply it to your avatar. This will create our short sleeves and V-neck, exposing our first layer of skin under our clone cloth avatar. Step number 8. Click on Roll XZ inside the viewport and rotate your avatar for review. Take a minute to look over your edges. You can use zoom to get in very close and make sure that everything looks good. If you're not happy with the length or the shape of the cuts, then go back and modify the opacity maps accordingly. It's important to note that texture quality is maintained by setting the texture resolution in the Preferences menu. For best quality, select the hammer icon, go to Texture Size, and set your textures to 1024 by 1024 or higher. Then click OK. Step number 9. Now you must repeat the process for the lower body. You will now need to create pants and then turn them into shorts using the clone cloth template for a guide and the same front and back reference images as before. Go to Lower Body, Modify, scroll down and locate the Launch button under the Diffuse portion of the Map Setting menu. Click Launch, and this will open the lower body diffuse map. Step number 10. Use the same image to select and copy your lower body texture. Using a digital photograph again is the quickest way to develop realistic clothing. Place the front of your lower body texture over the left side of the clone cloth template labeled Front. And then shape, transform, and trim until you're happy with the fit. Minimize your back reference. Hide your top layer. Make active your bottom layer. And drag and drop. Using the transform tool is again the easiest way to get your layer to the shape that you need it. And then, of course, trimming. You get the idea, and we already have a layer set up. Color-coded seams give you a precise explanation of where the front and back images will merge, creating a 360-degree custom texture map. Notice the bleed area as well. Return to your back image in Photoshop, and we'll go ahead and minimize our front reference and maximize our back reference to copy a new back texture. Make our pants active here and simply drag and drop onto our iClone lower textured diffuse JPEG. And then shape, transform, and trim using Control T for a transform. And if you hold Alt, like I am here, when hovering over your corners, you'll see that your icon will change and your cursor will become a gray arrow, and that's allowing me to pull these vertices or corners individually. Trim until you're happy, paying attention to the color-coded seams, and you get the idea. And we already have a back pant set up, so we'll bring that in now. And now that's in scene. Make sure you notice the bleed area as well. Make sure both sides, front and back, cover the bleed, and then save your file to replace the iClone lower texture diffuse JPEG. Go to File, Save, select JPEG from the Format option, click iClone lower texture underscore diffuse 00, select Save, and say yes to the replace, and then OK to the JPEG options. Step number 12, return to iClone, scroll down and locate the Update button at the bottom of the Modify menu. Click Update and notice that your new diffuse map will be applied to your legs. Step number 13, return to Photoshop to the lower body diffuse file because you need to create an opacity map. This map will be an active second layer determining where the viewer will be able to either see through the garment completely using solid black or using grayscale to have a semi-transparent surface such as nylon or mesh fabric or fishnet, or using solid white where you wish the texture to be 100% visible. Use the clone cloth template to select where you wish to make your cut or alterations to the existing design. In this example, we will shorten the legs by setting up our front and back as follows. Make both layers active by holding Shift and clicking in the layer palette. Use Ctrl E to merge the layers. Set your opacity at 50%, and then select L for lasso, or select your lasso tool from the tool palette. Click, hold Alt, and then follow your guide here, going across, isolating the lower portion of the legs where we wished it to be invisible. Now we have our selection. Use hotkey Ctrl C for copy and Ctrl V for paste to create a second layer. This layer will be the bottom portion of our opacity file. Zoom in and use your move tool to reposition the layer properly. Then hold Ctrl and select the layer window in the layer palette, making a selection of the visible portion of the layer. Make sure black is your background color, and then use hotkey Control plus backspace to fill the layer with solid black. You then can use Control D to deselect, select your back layer, set opacity to 100, make sure that white is now your background color. Use Control plus click in the layer window in the layer palette, make sure white is your background color, and then select Control plus backspace. Control deselect, and then save your file. Go to File, Save As, iClone, Upper, Jack, Casual, Shorts, underscore opacity, and select the JPEG format. Use a specific name for your file, stating the body section, iClone Upper, then the clone cloth type, Jack Casual, and finally the modification style and type, Shorts opacity.jpg. To keep things further organized, you may want to use a different folder specifically for your opacity files. Select Save, and OK from the JPEG options. Step number 14, again return to iClone and locate the Import Opacity button under the Opacity section in the Map Settings portion of the menu. Click on Import Opacity and then navigate to your new opacity file. Select Open to apply to your avatar. This will create your shorts, cutting off the bottom, exposing the first skin layer of your avatar's legs. Step 15. Click Roll Z inside the viewport to rotate your avatar for review. Take a minute to look over your edges. If you're not happy with the length or shape of the cuts, then go back and modify the opacity maps accordingly. Step number 16. Now you must repeat the process for the shoes. You will now create sandals using the clone cloth template for a guide, while also a default texture image that comes standard with iClone. Go to Shoes, Modify, locate the Launch button under the Diffuse portion of the menu, and click Launch to open the Diffuse Shoes map. Using Clone Cloth as a guide, you will now open another default texture. Select Ctrl plus O for Open, and navigate the following path: C Drive, Program Files, Reallusion, iClone 2, Template, iClone Template, Texture, iClone Diffuse, G2 Clone Cloth, Jack Casual Shoes. Hold Shift and drag and drop the new texture onto the Clone Cloth template. This will be used to create the new shoe entirely. Step number 18. Place the file directly over the Clone Cloth template, and then cut and trim your image until you're happy with the fit and design. Again, the color-coded seams will give you a precise explanation of where the front and back images will merge, creating a 360-degree custom texture map. Take notice of the bleed area as well. Be sure to cover that area. A tip to create a new design such as sandal straps is to use the Clone Cloth template and Magic Wand tool in Photoshop to select the area you wish to get rid of. Make sure wherever you paint and design connects on all sides as needed in accordance with the UV layout. So go ahead and make this active, and we'll decide to set up our straps going across the toes, and we see that right here is where the toe will be, so we're going to go ahead and get rid of that. Making our background active and using the magic wand, we can easily go in here and select out every UV square that we wish to get rid of. Zooming in will make this a lot faster, and holding Shift and clicking will allow you to make multiple selections. This is a tedious process, but if you take the time, you can work through and basically get rid of anything you wish on your texture layer. As you can see, now we have this selected, and if we make our texture layer active and hit delete, that portion of the shoe will be deleted. As you can see, we're cutting into the sole a little bit, so we'll Control Z that, and get rid of that portion of the selection. Now if we hit delete, as you can see, we're only taking off parts of the shoe that would not be there if these were actually a pair of sandals. We've already got a texture file set up for this, so we'll bring that into scene now. As you can see in comparison, we already have all of our selection made on this particular file. And you can see where we actually have straps left in place of what used to be the entire shoe by simply selecting out these areas and using the UV as a guide. Then leaving everything else in the texture black that we wish to make invisible. We'll go ahead and use this layer for our iClone Shoes Texture Diffuse. And when you have a layout similar to this or something that you're happy with ready, go to File, Save, select JPEG, Format, and replace the iClone Shoes Texture _ Diffuse 00. Select Save, and then Yes to replace. Select OK in the JPEG options. Step number 19. Now, in your iClone Shoes Texture _ Diffuse file, you need to create your final opacity map. This map will be an active second layer determining where the viewer will be able to either see through the garment completely using solid black, or using grayscale where you wish to have a semi-transparent surface such as nylon or mesh fabric, and using solid white where you wish the texture to be visible. Use the Clone Cloth template to select where you wish to make your cut or alterations to the existing design. In this example, we will cut out the toes along with 4 other sections by setting up our opacity map. After you're happy with the modification, save it. In your opacity map, use the magic wand tool to select all the black area that you wish to make completely 100% invisible. Then use Control-Shift-I for an invert selection and Control plus backspace to fill the remainder of your file with solid white for a 100% visible view from your audience. Control D to deselect, go to File, Save As, and name your file something like iClone Shoes Jack Casual Sandals _ opacity, and select the JPEG format. Use a specific name for your file, stating the body section, iClone Shoes, then the cloth type, Jack Casual, and finally the modification style and type, Sandals, Opacity. Select Save, and then OK in the JPEG options. Step number 20, return to iClone and locate the Import Diffuse button represented by a folder icon under the Diffuse section of the Map Settings portion of the menu. Click on Import Diffuse and navigate to your new diffuse map created in Step 18. As you can see, our black area is still visible without our opacity map applied. So then, locate the Import Opacity button, represented by a folder icon under the Opacity section of the Map Settings portion of the menu. Click on Import Opacity, and then navigate to your new opacity map. Step 21. Click on Roll XZ inside the viewport and rotate your avatar for review. Use Zoom to zoom in and get a close look at your edges, making sure everything looks good about your new shoes. If you're not happy with the length or shape of the cuts, then go back and modify the opacity maps accordingly. Step number 22. You now have a fully custom clone cloth texture pack. All that's left to do is save your new character and close for future use. Go to Character, Custom, Add, and name your avatar as follows. Something like Jack Casual Outdoors, or maybe even possibly Jack Casual Hiking. As long as it's something to explain the clone cloth type and custom fashion design. If you have any further questions, please feel free to contact Reallusion Technical Support.